So I just put us live just to be live because I'm going to cut this off. But we were having a funny conversation, and of course, as soon as I turn us live, you stop talking. So.
Oh, I didn't even realize you hit the button to go live. That's nice, host. Nice host.
You know, what can I say?
What?
We were having fun talking about, picking up phones while people are on the internet.
There are probably some people out. There are probably some people out here that don't remember those days.
There are probably also some people out there that are still living those days.
That's true.
True now.
And I do feel sorry for them.
Because it would have been Walt had he not managed to get DSL.
This is true too.
Hell no.
Yeah.
There, I would have found something or moved. Even if you just built a house, sell it, and move.
Even if it was super duper laggy satellite, that would have been better.
I don't know. To play the games, you can't have the lag. Lag kills.
I remember talking to one of the mainframers who lived out in the boondocks and couldn't get anything but satellite, telling me he couldn't even VPN into the network because it was so slow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've heard that before. That's horrible.
But then I've heard other people say, yeah, it's really slow if you're trying to interact with something, but if you're trying to do something like streaming, it's fine.
Yeah,
so
that's
you can
about
watch
right.
Netflix. You can download really fast, but don't try to interact with anything because that's just a bad idea.
Yep. Yeah, because that's what Pratt has, a satellite, and he can download all he wants. But yeah, you're right. He can't. Like, he couldn't even play his online poker and stuff without the lag being too bad.
Yeah, and he was doing something where was he doing phone stuff? He was doing.
Yeah, he ended up going back to phone for dial-up just to play the online games.
Well, no. I mean, like cell service.
Oh yeah, he tried that for a while too. Yeah,
but he kept
satellite was better than that.
Well, like MiFi or something, or one of those types of things.
Yeah.
Because when he and I were talking about him doing he was doing a bunch of Kickstarters, and when he was doing the Kickstarters, he was like having to meter how much time he spent responding to people on Kickstarter, and he barely was having enough, because he only had 5 gigs a month. So
right.
He's like, you can blow through 5 gigs a month a lot faster than you realize. And I'm like, yeah, I've looked. I use 250 to about 200 to 250 a month. So
yeah, 5 I would. 5 is usage for my phone. between the phones in the house, we could do 5.
My daughter, if I would let her go, I'm sure she could blow through our 6. We have 6 because we have the new family plan on Verizon, but I'm sure if I let her go, she'd blow through that 6 in no time.
Oh, I believe it. Because there's times where I'm sitting there and I'm streaming stuff. I mean, I'm streaming stuff on Twitch. Like, if Kim's watching something on TV and it's something I'm not interested in, I'll just grab my phone and pull up Twitch and start watching somebody playing a game or something, and just turn the volume down real low and just act like I'm surfing on the phone or something.
But don't you do that over Wi-Fi, though?
Yes, that is done over Wi-Fi. But I'm just saying, if it was...
I'm talking my daughter burned 2.5 gigs of data. Like,
yeah.
Verizon data.
Kim probably does that with her Facebook and everything. So. And she'll stream. She does a lot of streaming too on her phone. I mean, like, we were out in the yard the other day and she was streaming Sirius radio. I mean, I don't think the Sirius radio is as bad. It's video. The video is what kills.
No, it's the video that kills.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She's doing anywhere between 8 and 20 meg in the morning when she gets on the bus, and in the afternoon when she gets on the bus. Is the 2 times it tags it with. So I know what time she gets on the bus because it says on the Verizon bill that's when she started streaming data, and it just, for some reason, the way Verizon does it, it's whenever you start streaming to whenever you're done, that it logs it all together, bundles it together.
Crazy.
So, yeah. But the good thing is I do know that she's not using her phone during school like she's not supposed to. So.
Yet.
Yeah.
How old is she?
She's 14.
Yet.
No, they'd take her phone from her.
Give it a year or two. She'll be sneaking it somehow.
They've already taken enough of her friends' phones that she's not willing to risk it.
Mm-hmm.
Because then that means mom and dad have to,
implants.
until mom and dad can go up and get the phone, and Trust me, this mom and dad would take their sweet time going up to get the phone.
That could be weeks, months.
Sorry, T, I just don't have time. You might have a better chance getting your dad to come up from Canton to get it, but anyways,
this is the LinuxInstall.net podcast. We're on episode 112.
Is it time? Oh, it's time. Sorry, it is.
Well, we've been live for a while. I figured we should at least introduce ourselves and what we're doing here, rather than just having geek chat.
That's true.
We are here for a reason.
We are. And that would be Linux Install 112. And I'm Brian. And that other
I'm Joe.
Joe. Hi, Joe.
Today I'll be Walt.
Better than being Jillian. But anyways.
Yeah, maybe.
For the purposes of this show, yes. What have you been up to, Joe?
Another hell week. But I do want to say some stuff about applications and what we refer to as work as COTS packages or off-the-shelf packages.
Common off-the-shelf software.
Yeah, and vendors supporting Linux, and how some of them really do support Linux and are very nice with what they give you with their software. So I've been working with some software, let's just say, differing brands, we'll say. One I particularly like, and one is okay for now. The one I particularly like, the install was very easy, and they actually give you a very nice init script that actually functions and works properly. You copy into the right directory, do a nice little check config, and you're off and running. And you really don't have to make too many changes to the init script. The other one gives you a init script on the website that you create a file for and try to run. And it blows up horrendously and does not work at all whatsoever, no matter what you do. And you basically end up creating your own init script because theirs sucks. So, if you're going to put out Linux software and offer these types of things, test the stuff, test your scripts, at least make sure they work. I mean, even if you just put them up there as an example, it should work.
Yes, it should. And it's not that hard to write an init script. I mean, obviously you decided to scrap it and start from scratch, and it wasn't impossible, so.
It was done in 10 minutes, and I probably tried to troubleshoot theirs for more than 10 minutes, let me tell you. Finally, I was like, okay, done, working, goodbye. That's it.
Nice.
So see, and I have templates that I've created, which I should probably share out there somewhere, but I have templates I created for doing the different init formats, systemd, upstart-d, the traditional sysinit.
Right.
And I have different scripts for all of those because I've needed to do exactly what you just did because the scripts, I have run into this more than once. And I will tell you right now, it almost never happens with an open source piece of software, but is better than a 60%, 70% chance it'll happen with a closed source / proprietary piece of software, even if it is open source, even if it's open core. For some reason, as soon as there's some closed part of it, that init script is some magical piece of gold, which took somebody 10 minutes to write, but magical piece of gold that they don't want to share anymore without you paying a fee. So.
I mean, I was really impressed with the one init script, the way it basically, I mean, as I was going through the software, I found, like an init script directory, and I was like, okay, is this something I could utilize here? VI'd it, looked, I'm like, wow, I've never really seen too many pieces of software come with a fully functioning init script like this before. Copy, that's init.d, check config on, do. Look at that, it works like a champ. I did nothing other than copy this into init.d and check config it on. And I was like, that is just sweet as far as saving me time goes.
See, now when you say complete, are you saying that it had a start, a stop, a restart, a status?
Yeah. It had everything, and I mean, it would.
Some
It worked.
applications you can condition
worked.
restart.
Yeah, it worked perfectly. I mean, I was able to reboot the server. It started the app right upon reboot and everything after it was check configured on, and it worked perfectly. The other one, we went through their start line bit by bit, trying to see where it was failing, and it was failing like at the second part. I mean, and there was like 3 parts to their start piece, and it was just. We just copied each part onto the command line, just seeing where it was blowing up, and we're like, okay, this doesn't work. What they have here.
That's when I use the -X flag. Say, where does it fail? But once you've spent that much time, I mean, once you've spent a half hour or more troubleshooting it, it really becomes counterproductive. So it's good that you punted.
And that's exactly, I mean, it was like 15, 20 minutes, and then I was just like, okay, DD this line, and let's just rewrite this real quick, and okay, there we go, now it's working. So it was, I just wanted to say, that was part of what I did this week for Linux. But I just wanted to share a little grief and a little rant. Some software is good, others, sometimes they're not so good.
Yeah. So what have you been up to?
And we won't say any names. We won't say any names.
No vendor names, no.
Exactly.
What?
I hit a macro key. Ashron's call. Don't worry about it.
Okay, but sorry to explain. All of a sudden, random text was showing up at the bottom of the screen, and I was like, "What are you trying to say?"
I got different macros set up here on my G keys, and it's very just easy things to do for the game. I do like this. I do like my G19 keyboard. If I have never said that before, it is a very beautiful keyboard.
So, Walt, what did you do this week?
I did yard work.
Okay. Well, I think we all did that.
That's what I spent most of my Memorial Day weekend doing.
Yeah.
I was putting the top onto a gazebo yesterday, and I told Kim when we ever move, I go, we're building her a wooden gazebo because I never want to have to put one of these damn things together again.
Yep. My in-laws have one. It's nice. They might get one too. Yeah, one thing that was kind of cool, we went and stopped for late lunch at BW3's, and there was a couple of kids there. It looked like they just graduated maybe high school, and they were meeting up for something, but they all had computers. So, you know, I always like to look to see what kind of gadgets and technology people are using around me. And the one kid actually had a Dell Mini 9 running Ubuntu.
Nice.
Really?
Yeah, and that's my portable machine. That's what I use for all my go-to stuff still. So I was pretty impressed. A couple of his other buddies had he had a Windows RT tablet with the keyboard.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and that's what I was listening to him complain, you know.
Wah wah wah.
Yeah.
Gee, Dad, that's what I get.
Yeah, I got one of those too. You got a free Office. That's about all it was good for. And somebody else had like a old D series Dell. It was like a D60 or 600. I recognized it from many years ago. I was using them at work. But yeah, I thought that was cool. Some dude's still rocking the Mini 9 and running Ubuntu, and he was telling his buddy about it. Yeah, he's got all the latest LibreOffice on there and latest updates, Firefox and whatnot, and could do all the stuff that you needed to do. So that was cool.
Cool. But you didn't rebuild any servers or workstations or anything this week. You're done with that.
No, I was working on actually when you chimed me in my little whatever this one is. The Fujitsu. Doing some updates to Debian on there. The U820. But nope, other than that, literally yard work pretty much every day for the last 4 days straight.
Yeah.
That's not a 4-day vacation weekend there, Walt. I hate to say it.
No, but it's cool.
No, I had to remind my wife Sunday night. after doing 5 yards of mulch, plants, all kinds of other stuff around the yard just to get the yard back into shape after a nice hard winter like we had. This was not a fun holiday weekend here in the States.
Although it was kind of fun for me because I got to use my new tractor. I put the deck on for the first time, got to ride around the yard. And,
I got to buy a chainsaw.
Everything's still new.
See, I did all my stuff on Friday, so this way I could play for the rest of the weekend.
I cut my lawn on Friday.
I cut my lawn, I cleaned up the garden, even though Kim's not planting a garden this year.
And put in my garden, yeah.
So Brian, besides yard work, what did you do? What did you do with Linux, or were you all Windows all week long?
I was playing with Flask some more, trying to get an application to work to build some automation into my process for promoting the podcasts. And I still haven't finished that. I also watched a lot of Game of Thrones. We got through season 3. We are actually on the current season finally.
All right.
Kim and I have been meaning to watch that. We haven't had a chance to.
It's pretty kick-ass. You should. Definitely.
Heck yeah. I even got Jillian watching it, and that's like ridiculous.
Yeah. It's not one I would get the DVDs for, though, Joe. I would borrow somebody's HBO code or get an HBO code.
Well, we have HBO, but I don't think they have them all out on HBO Go.
Oh, yes, they are. Yes. That's how we watched the first 3 seasons, or 2 seasons. Because the first 2 seasons aren't on demand, which made no sense to me.
That's okay. So you know what? I was just going to say, we looked on demand, and I noticed that the first season wasn't there, but if we can get it through HBO Go, then... Okay. Interesting. Good to know. We will have to go that route then.
Because we were very excited when we didn't have to sit in the bedroom to watch the show. We could actually sit in the living room and watch it on the bigger TV.
So what did you watch your HBO Go through? What device?
My Linux-powered Roku. I have a second-generation Roku, so a relatively old Roku, but it still runs HBO Go. So I watched it on that. I need to buy some... I need to go on a buying spree like Walt does all the time and start buying some small PCs so I can make a better home theater PC to put in the bedroom. Something.
I want to get that TV you guys got.
The one that we bought?
Yeah.
For those of you who missed it, Newegg had a 40-inch... Oh, who is that? Chang Hong TV, which actually looks amazingly good for $229.
Yeah. I was playing Xbox on it a couple hours a day.
There you
Nice.
I was streaming... what was I streaming? Oh, I streamed the Pink concert while I was working the other night, and every time I looked up at it, I was like, damn, she looks like she's right there. It was
Dream
like...
on.
Really good.
Dream on.
I wish I could afford seats that close. Oh my god. And some other stuff I watched on there. I watched high def. Vivo was weird. I tried the Vivo app. The Vivo app through Chromecast for some reason defaulted to medium resolution, and it looked like hell. And then I switched it to high res, and it didn't just start where I picked where I was and continue. It had to restart the whole thing I was listening to. But once it did, it looked pretty good too. The bigger problem is that I think the streams aren't fast enough for the TV. I don't think the problem was the TV itself.
Were you using like your phone or something or a computer?
No, I was using the touchpad to manage the Chromecast.
Yeah, because I've been using the PC doing like YouTubes and whatnot, and I've never had an issue.
That's why I'm saying it's the streaming choice, because
right.
Netflix was fine, YouTube was fine, Vivo wasn't very good. I mean, it was bad. It was when I realized it wasn't on high definition, it was better. So streaming, not all streaming services are created equal.
Right.
Just leave it at that. So I was just Flask programming on Python and Linux, of course, and watching Game of Thrones.
Cool.
Yeah, that's about it. kind of boring. But it was kind of it felt like a short week for me, even though it wasn't, probably because I spent 2 days doing yard work. But I'm also getting ready to go to DevOps World, or not DevOps World, I'm sorry, DevOps Days in Pittsburgh, which is a 2-day DevOps conference. I will be there Thursday and Friday. If anybody else is going to be there and you hear the podcast, send me an email at podcast@linuxinstall.net, and we'll let me know what your name is and like how to get a hold of you when you're down there, and I'll try to catch up with you. Because I'll be by myself. Because I'm going down there to network. Because I think it'll be cool. Obviously, nobody else cares. So.
Do you want us to honestly answer?
I went by myself. I didn't really ask anybody else, so even if they wanted to go, it's not their fault for not going. It's just, I just didn't feel like asking. I got free tickets, so. I got a free ticket since I applied. So that's why I was going. It wasn't bad, though. It was only $200 for the conference.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah.
Pretty cheap. So, I don't know if there's still tickets available. You'll have to go out to devopsdays.org and check. So, anything else before we move on? No? Doesn't sound like it. All right, we're moving on. So, the topic of this week. So, while I was looking around through my feeds trying to figure out what we should talk about tonight, I came across a best desktop distros for newbies, and it reminded me about Elementary OS, which is a very clean macOS lookalike Linux distribution. What I thought was interesting, though, and I mean, it's nice. It's nothing, it's Mint's nice and other stuff. I haven't spent a lot of time playing with it, so I can't really give you a good review on it. It seems to be okay. What I thought was interesting is when you went to their site and then clicked on the download link, I'm going to call it askware, because they ask you to make
politely.
Politely, you can choose 0. You pay what it's worth, what you think it's worth. So you can choose nothing and pay nothing and get it downloaded for free, which I'll probably do and install sometime this week. Ubuntu's now also doing something similar, and Mint takes donations. So, and to get an idea, Mint's now up to, last month they did $9,000 in donations. Which is pretty crazy considering it's just donations. Now, some people have donated some pretty crazy amounts of stuff considering it's free software that you don't have to pay for. But it's cool that people are supporting the projects that they like.
I think it's cool, but in the grand scheme of it, 9,000 really isn't that much if you think about it, probably for how many people are using it.
$9,000 for a month? Yeah, it's not very much considering. And I'm not trying to shame people into donating, but if you really think about what you're getting out of it, and their recommended donation, if I remember correctly, is like $5. They're not even asking for a lot. Most people are giving, looks like, a lot more. Because they list everybody who donated in the month.
That's cool.
If they've donated multiple times, kind of as a thank you. Some people donated really weird amounts too, like I see $13.29, $33.21. I'm not sure what that's working out to. There's a bunch of people who donated $5. A couple people donated big. There's a guy here for $500. And a bunch of people, this is their second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever time donating, which means they're probably donating every time they download a new full release. Probably, I would think.
Big, I guess.
So, but do we think? So let's compare this to something like CentOS, which wasn't getting any money, or Fedora, which is really funded probably more by Red Hat than anybody else. But those desktop environments and those desktops, do you think that it's the money that's being offered or paid to Ubuntu, Mint, and Elementary OS that makes them work harder to make it look good? Or, is it because of the money that they look good, or do they look good, which is why they're asking for money? Like, is it which is first?
The second.
Yeah, I'd go with the second.
Because it looks good, you think people are willing to pay for it?
Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely. Like I said, what little bit of money they're bringing in for probably all the people who actually are contributing to this.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't believe most of the contributors are probably seeing much, if anything.
If they paid out based on the amount contributed, probably not, because there's probably a small number of people doing a majority of the work. There's a bunch of other
Right.
people that are kicking in. Hey, this really freaking annoyed me, so I fixed it. Here's the fix.
Right.
Right. So there's a whole bunch of people supporting them and taking care of little, like they would, like little nibbles, like little bits, little nibbly bits here and there that are
I think
making
I,
it better all over.
I think with a lot of the open source software, I think it just comes down to what the developer wants to do with it and what type of roadmap they want to go with. I mean, if they just want to release something that just is an application and develop something that just is functional and works, it could do that, and a lot of people could use it. But if they actually want to have some sort of mass appeal, they're going to get some little bit of lipstick and a little bit of different, hair product in there and everything, and pretty it up a little bit and make it look a little better.
Little
I mean
lipstick
that,
and rouge.
yeah. I mean it's going to come down to just visual appeal, and people definitely like things that look better. There's a lot of us that use things that may not be the most eye appealing type of thing. It's completely functional and working. So, we still use these applications, but when something actually does look a little better and it's a little more pleasing to the eye, I think it could probably gain a little broader acceptance then.
I completely understand what you mean. There are two Git projects. I was looking for something to manage Git repositories that we would be able to give customers access to, so we could restrict access to the different repositories, so we didn't have to open up our entire repository box to the world, basically. Because my company is not, they're not open source, they're not anti-open source, but that's not their goal, right? They build stuff to fix problems. To be honest with you, most of what we've written is pretty useless to anybody not doing what we do. So if you're not helping people migrate servers and workstations, it's not real useful. That's kind of what we do, so it's where most of our work is. But there's two different products that I was looking at, and there's this one called GitLab. GitLab looks just like, hey, the product that's making lots of money and lots of news lately called GitHub. It looks almost identical to it. They also offer a commercial version. And then there's this other one called GitBlit, which has almost all the same functionality, but it does not look anywhere near as nice. It looks okay. It's not completely unusable. It's not ugly. It's just not.
It's functional.
It's functional. It's not pretty. The other one is pretty and functional. This one is just functional. And I look at the two and I'm like, well, actually, for my need, we're going to go with the one that's actually functional. But we're going with that because of the way it's built, not because of it runs on Windows. The other one doesn't. So I have to go with what my company does. But it's funny that there's that same thing that you just said, Joe, about the money versus the money and the looks. It's definitely working through, and it's working out that same way. It's another open source example I can give besides the desktop, where something that looks better definitely is worth something, and people are willing to pay for it. The other thing, just as functional, does all the same things, but doesn't look as pretty. And the leader of that project is not trying to make money on it. So, he's a consultant. He wants to consult. So it's just part of his bag of tricks for his consulting. So it's a tool that he uses for his customers. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that's kind of where this kind of stems from, and it goes to. I'm just wondering if that's why. Like, I know I'm going to get in a lot of trouble for this, but I know people like standard GNOME, and there's people out there that really like OpenSUSE's KDE implementation. And I'm not talking about KDE in total, but just the one that comes with OpenSUSE, and they're like, oh, it looks great, or the KUbuntu. Well, KUbuntu actually looks better than the one from CentOS or OpenSUSE. Like, the base ones are okay. They're functional, but they don't look tremendously pretty. When you get to something like Ubuntu or somebody else that's actually taken the time to show off everything that KDE can do, it looks a lot better. But those also tend to have some way to pay the person or donate. And I'm just wondering if that's really where, if we want things to look better and to attract more people to Linux, is that really where we should be pushing all of our open source projects to go? Go to some pay model so that you can entice people to do more work to make things look pretty.
Well, from the end user standpoint, if I'm going to pay for an askware, I'm going to expect them to do some of that above and beyond because they asked me for money for something that they are now going to work on because I gave them money. If I'm going to donate to something, I'm already happy with the way it is, or I don't really care if anything changes. So those two directions, I guess, would be pretty significant in how I would want to charge or ask for money or whatever.
Now, when you make a donation, do you feel like you can then maybe post or send something to developer and say, hey, have you ever thought about adding in this or that? Something that you would seem could make the software a little more useful to you?
Personally, no. If it was donation, I gave money because I wanted to, not because they needed it. If it was askware, where before you even download it, they say, hey, we need this money to continue the project, then I'd be more inclined to say, okay, now that you have my money, how about making these things happen or give some suggestions or whatever. I mean, that's personally how I differentiate those two.
See, I think that's interesting because I'm pretty sure that Mohammed A., who's donated $2,820 in over 10 donations to Linux Mint, probably feels like that if he sends an email, he should get some higher level of response, right?
I'm sure there are people who are like that. I'm just saying, me personally, that's how I would see it.
Okay.
If I do something for somebody and they give me a couple dollars, I'm not expected to do something again or above and beyond the next time. It's just because they wanted to do it. But if I charge them for something, or I said, hey, I'll do it for you if you float me a couple bucks, well, then that's different. Now there's an expectation set.
Right. Yeah, and that's where I was going to go with it, because the reason why I don't charge family, even if they want to pay me to help them with their computers, is because there's no expectation that I'm going to come back or that I got it fixed right the first time, because I may not. And I don't want you to, I don't know, I don't want there to be any hard feelings if I've gone off and done something that way.
Yep.
So I see your difference. And I was just trying to play contrarian. I just wanted to extend the conversation.
Yeah, and then the other thing too is, between those different projects, we know Ubuntu has back-end funding. We know, SUSE has back-end funding. We know Fedora has back-end funding. But some of those other projects, if they don't have that bankroll behind them, they, depending upon the amount of time they're putting in, might legitimately need the money to continue to do it.
Well, either that or that's why a bunch of open source projects, I think, fade. Is the person creating it creates it, it meets their specific needs, and they don't care if it gets any better.
Right.
But it gains some acceptance from the community, and maybe for a while they have the energy to keep doing it for free, but because either they don't feel like they're getting enough appreciation, that's one thing, or nobody's offering, to pay them. I don't know. I don't know if donations always works. I don't think donations is sustainable. I think Linux Mint is an outlier. I think it's an encouragement if you donate to a project, and I think that probably keeps some people going. But
yeah, like you said, you get an extension for potential feature requests or tweaks, but yeah, definitely not a long-term solution. I've been involved in many a thing that doesn't happen.
And I don't think Bountyaware works either, right? So,
does that even exist anymore?
But I think that's why
they fad for a while.
Yeah, I know. It was a big fad for a while. Pay us a bounty and we'll work on your thing. The problem was is the things that got worked on, the people with the money didn't always represent the feature that needed to be implemented in a lot of situations. And I think that's why the bountyware stuff didn't work. Because to really get people to sink their teeth into it, you got to kind of leave it open as to what you're willing to work on. But what you're willing to work on may not be what the majority of people really want. I don't know. I'm really looking for some other way to encourage people to keep doing this stuff because I have more than a few pieces of software that I really, really like that development has just flat stopped on. And they were go-to pieces of software 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, but it's 4 years now and nobody's put there's not been a check in a code in 4 years.
Well,
And
it's a lot harder now too. I mean, technology changes so fast. If you were putting out shareware, say 10 years ago, you were pretty well guaranteed it was going to last a few years, even if you didn't do anything. Now, you get 3 months, 6 months tops, and you got to have an update, or potentially it's broke.
Now, have you found any alternatives to some of these softwares, or are they pretty much just one shot things that is like really niche software?
Well, let's take an example that affects you and I, Joe, pretty seriously, which is Levelator. Okay. Levelator has not had an update in at least 4 years. And no longer runs on my version of Ubuntu or Linux Mint, and there's in no uncertain terms when you go to the website, they say they were not planning on doing any updates to the software for Windows or for Linux. The developers have basically just abandoned it. And
so you need to keep an old VM around, you're saying?
Well, so it set me off on this whole course of trying to find another tool to do that. And I found another command line tool, which actually worked better than Levelator, only because Levelator stopped development 4 years ago, and there's new stuff that they can use, and they aren't. But I found two new ways to handle it. So there's almost always something to take its place, but you get familiar and comfortable with a tool. It just sucks to have to every 3 years throw out the tool because everybody stopped developing on it and go find the new tool that everybody's hot for. In that particular example, I don't think anybody had a choice. They couldn't have taken the software and forked it and kept going with it, which I've seen people do with other OSs or other distros where people stop doing just the open version. I mean, that's kind of where Fedora came from, right? Red Hat wanted to stop doing the completely free version with all the compiled stuff. So they started doing Fedora. And then the CentOS guys came out and said, well, we don't want to be on the bleeding edge like Fedora is. We're going to take and just cold compile, separately compile the stuff that Red Hat has to release. So it has all but the Red Hat extension stuff that's specific to Red Hat. And all that stuff is there, and you can get the binaries from the CentOS team. And that kind of stuff kind of works, but it was a pain to try to explain to people why they weren't going to use Red Hat anymore and why Red Hat was no longer free, but you're going to use this new thing called either Scientific Linux or CentOS, And then there's been all the other problems with CentOS. Are they going to develop? Are they going to live? Aren't they going to live? Are they going to develop? Aren't they going to develop? The lead developer disappearing for 9 months because he had work to do. He had a real job he had to do.
Well, wasn't there like a white box Linux for a while that tried to do that, and some other ones that eventually went away?
Yeah, there was white box, which I thought was going to come out of nowhere and take over. I was using one called ClearOS.
Mm-hmm.
ClearOS was a kind of Ubuntu type or Red Hat type model where they had a commercial version and they had the free version, and there really wasn't much difference until you got down to they were doing a bunch of groupware stuff, and they were tuning very much to small businesses. They wanted to come in and basically take out the Windows small business server, so they were providing file services, directory services, all that good groupware stuff that small businesses need. But that was their idea was that you would only ever use a web interface to manage the Linux box. And you could log into it, and if you knew what you were doing, like I do, then you could get around and do stuff. But I don't know, it had a lot of rough edges, and I kept updating it, and then eventually it just stopped getting updates, and there was no real clear explanation as to why it stopped getting updates. Unless I went to the website. Once I went to the website, there was. But I just went out and did updates, and when I haven't done updates in 90 days, there should be a whole bunch of updates out here, and it didn't have any updates. And there was no... What would have been nice would have been some feedback on that wonderful web page that they've created that says, oh, you need to upgrade to this. You need to do a full version upgrade. We don't want to do that with automatic updates because that could be dangerous. Here, follow these steps. And that wasn't what they needed. So I've abandoned them. And I think there was one more. I'm trying to remember what the other one was. But a lot of people abandoned CentOS for Whitebox, for Scientific Linux, and for this ClearOS. Sure. And those were, I don't know, they looked like they were going to be more stable, but as soon as the guy came back to doing CentOS, everybody flocked back to CentOS for some unknown reason, which was kind of funny because he had just abandoned them.
Mm-hmm.
And then he just shows back up, and everybody's like, okay, well, we'll just go back to using CentOS. And I'm like, okay. I don't really understand.
Well, a lot of times when people pick up those projects, they don't really realize what they're getting into.
Yeah.
Or, like you said, if their particular spin happens to explode, and that's the new popular, hotness of the week.
Oh yeah. Oh, doing a full distribution. I mean, I've read the book, whatever it's called. There's a book about spinning your own distribution. It's not as easy as one would think. Like, there's a lot of stuff you have to take into account. There's a lot of things that aren't there that you need. Some of that's gotten easier over time. But trying to keep hardware lists updated and stuff like that. You have a lot of stuff you have to do to make it work. And you have to compile all your own stuff, so you have to, make your own choice. There's a lot of choices to make. Now, once you get it set up the first time, it probably is easier the second, but it's not easy by any stretch. It's a lot of work. The guys that do Mint, the guy that does PingIOS, PC Linux, Elementary OS, all the ones that are on that list on that site, although I don't agree with some of them, they're not easy. And then you get the crazy guys that want to do stuff like Puppy Linux and Tiny Core Linux, where they're just trying to see how much functionality can we pack into 200 megs.
Damn small Linux.
Damn small Linux. We want maximum impact, but like little bitty space. So how much can we compact? What is the bare minimum to get something to work, whatever that something is. But
yeah, that's like that Raspberry Pi distro that was just out a couple weeks ago. 52 megs, the whole thing.
Right. Oh, the Arch one isn't. It's probably bigger than 52 megs, but it's not much bigger than 52 megs.
Yeah, it was only like I might have broke 100, but still.
It's still, considering on my current system. Let's see. I am at 6.6 gigs on my root partition, and that's all my home stuff is on my home drive, as we've talked about how wonderful that is. Logs are on my var logs partition, so that's just basically the OS stuff and all the applications that I have installed on it, which is a lot, because I have 6.6 gigs used. What's really funny is I have 6.6 gigs used. I have a more functional, more useful machine than the 20 gigs on my other OS over on the laptop back there. Don't know why 6.6 gigs can do it, but it takes 20 to do it over there. That GUI. It takes a lot. Anyways, I think we've beat this to death. You guys have anything else to talk about on that?
Nope, I think that's it.
All right. So in conclusion, don't forget to follow us on Twitter. We are at Linux Install. We have the Google Plus community. which is linuxplus.google.com, the plus sign, Linux install net. And you can check out what Walt's working on separately over at jevack.com. Joe's doing What I'm Playing Now, which rumor has it he will be recording right after this show. So if you're watching, you can go watch
2
Joe.
podcasts in one night. Am I crazy or what?
I did.
This could be a first. What's that?
I did 4 the other night because I did 3 DevOps Masteries plus this one, all on last Tuesday. So I had a lot of editing to do. And that's my other thing I'm doing, which is DevOpsMastery.com, which explains why I'm headed to DevOps Days down in Pittsburgh on Thursday. So don't forget, if you guys are going, you can also email us your feedback too. I forgot about that. You can email us your feedback at podcast@linuxinstall.net. And what should everybody go do, Joe?
Go install some Linux. Have a good week, everybody. We'll see you later.
Bye. Must find the